All right, so let's go over a fun article. And this one is titled Trump Showed a Drag Queen in a Hateful Ad. She used it to raise $15,000 for trans people. And the moral of the story is don't fuck with drag queens. Drag queens are awesome. I'm still hoping to actually go to a drag show before I die. Okay. And the subtitle is The Devil Works Hard, but Pattie Gonia Works Harder. The drag performer wrote of her efforts to counter Trump's hate. Which again is awesome. And she looks fierce too. Love it. Drag queen Pattie Gonia said she is considering her legal options after former President Donald Trump used video footage of her in a recent anti-transgender political ad against Democratic presidential nominee Vice President Kamala Harris. The drag performer used the ad to help raise $15,000 for Trans Lifeline and Point of Pride, two organizations that support trans lives and gender-affirming care, respectively. Thousands of fans notified the drag performer after Trump's ad aired last week. The ad mentions Harris's support of providing life-saving care to transgender inmates, something required by federal law. It also shows images of Harris standing next to Pattie Gonia, next to a trans woman, and also a non-binary individual who were okay, let's try that again. Next to a trans woman and also a non-binary individual who both were Biden administration officials. The ad concludes with the line, Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you. Okay, now, obviously, a non-binary person is going to go by they, them. That's just, yeah. Not all. Some still use he, she pronouns, but they, them is usually one of the options. Like she, they, he, they, that sort of thing. Not always, but a trans person, first off, Pattie Gonia is not trans, she's a drag queen. Secondly, a trans woman most likely is going to go by she, her, because trans woman, I could be wrong, I could be simplifying this, but still, let's see. So yeah, that shows their stupidity right there. I mean, but hate is stupid, so what can you say? Trump continues to use queer people to attack Kamala Harris, to divide our nation, and to wage war against gender-affirming care, which we know saves lives, Pattie Gonia said in a recent Instagram video mentioning her response to it. No, the Trump campaign did not have my permission to use my name or likeness. Yes, we are reviewing our legal options, and yes, I'm going to do what queer people always do, turn our pain into something positive. You go, girl. The performer then asked her followers to donate to a fundraiser for two trans organizations which provide critical care to trans individuals. I'm using this moment to raise money for trans and gender-affirming healthcare, she said. If you'd like to join me in saying a big fuck you to Trump, you know where to go. Vote this fall and make America gay again. I love it, I love it, I love it. Mark McKenna, a professor at the UCLA School of Law, told NBC News that Pattie Gonia might not succeed in a lawsuit against the ad because a political ad gets a lot more leeway, and normally we don't give people claims to stop political speech unless the speech rises to the level of defamation. Are we sure it didn't? But, I mean, it's one thing to say stupid shit, but to use someone's likeness, I don't know. If this were not a political ad but a commercial ad, I would have no trouble saying this person has a very strong claim, McKenna said. See, I don't like that. I mean, political ads shouldn't be using someone's likeness to mislead people. I mean, I just... But then again, they've tried to show the beauty of Georgia in one ad, and it turned out it was the Republic of Georgia and not the state of Georgia that they took the images from. So I guess if you go by that, it just doesn't sit well with me. Trump's transphobic attack isn't surprising. Both Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, have lied about Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, allowing his state's government to kidnap children from unsupported parents to change their gender. Are you kidding me? Of course that's not happening. What scary world do people live in? The claim is untrue, as Walz has never signed any such law or order, nor any state officials legally authorized to take trans kids away from unsupportive parents. Trump has also claimed that schools are conducting surgeries on trans youth without parental consent. This is also a lie. No schools are providing such surgeries. Doctors typically refuse to provide such surgeries to minors, and doctors never provide gender-affirming surgery to minors without parental consent. And one of the Reddit groups I'm a part of had a lot of fun with that. These are trans people who are like, where are these surgeries taking place? I could have used one. So, yeah, lots of fun with that one. Let me just see what else. All right. Furthermore, the Republican National Platform pledges to keep men out of women's sports. There are no men in women's sports. And cut federal funding for any schools pushing radical gender ideology or inappropriate sexual or political content on our children. Okay. Now, again, like I said, men are not in women's sports. Now, if you want to say biological males, well, yeah, that can sometimes happen because there are trans women in women's sports. You can't deny that. Interestingly, nobody says anything about trans men in men's sports. Interesting how it works out that nobody ever mentions trans men in these attacks. Let's see. Pushing radical gender ideology. What the hell is radical gender ideology? Accepting that trans people exist? I mean, nobody is telling someone to be trans. I've used this example before. Now, obviously, this isn't a trans example, but I would have loved it if I learned in high school in sex ed that asexuality was a thing. That's a valid sexual orientation. I would have loved knowing that. I would have been like, aha, a lot sooner than I was. So, yeah, but I didn't learn about asexuality. I'm still asexual. So, seriously, nobody's pushing shit. These kids can already figure out. They might not know exactly what's happening, but they know that there's something different. They don't need adults telling them that they're trans. They can figure it out if they are given the correct information. Or someone might say, oh, you know what? I think I know someone who fits that. Or something. Nobody is saying, though, you have to be that. Nobody's doing that. Inappropriate sexual or political content on our children. What political content? Nobody is saying that you have to accept someone for just existing. I mean, they might try to convince you that it's a good thing to do, that it wouldn't make you a shitty human, but they're not going to stop you from doing that. I mean, except for the fact that they're not going to actually allow you to attack other people, but they're not going to stop you from, not socializing with the gay straight alliance. You don't want to do that? Fine. Nobody's pushing you. And inappropriate sexual content? What sexual content are you talking about? We're talking about a bunch of straight people, cis straight people, who on onesies for a boy will say ladies man. I'm sorry. How is that appropriate sexual contact? I mean, you're basically assuming that being part of the LGBT community is just by its very nature sexual, when it's not. I mean, I just don't see what inappropriate sexual content are we talking about, or political content, because again, we're talking about teenagers. We are and if they're just naturally going to be drawn to certain issues. Anything younger, maybe they're ready to hear about these things and make a stand. That's not for you to decide that they're not allowed to do that. But what I normally see are adults teaching children to be political, and I mean parents. So, again, what? Chapter 9, Section 5 of the platform promises to end left-wing gender insanity. What is that? Stating we will keep men out of women's sports, again, not a thing. Ban taxpayer funding for sex change surgeries. And stop taxpayer-funded schools from promoting gender transition. Reverse Biden's radical rewrite of the Title IX education regulations and restore protections for women and girls. Okay, that's a lot. Again, men are not in women's sports. I would love for you guys to look up the case of Mac Beggs. He is a wrestler who was born female, so a trans man, who Kansas, because he's trans, made him compete with girls. So when you watch these clips of him manhandling these girls, because he's on testosterone, and so he is hella stronger than these girls, people use that as a reason why men shouldn't be in women's sports, without understanding that he is a trans man. This is the policy you want. You want to put trans men in women's sports because they were born female. And same thing the other way around. Now, granted, there is things to be said about people who transitioned after puberty. I'm not going to get into that conversation because I really don't know if there is long-term effects from that puberty. But from what I've heard from trans women, that because of the estrogen and the lack of testosterone, because, they are actually weaker than a lot of cis women. So I'm going to say it's not as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. But again, I'm not the one doing these studies. I don't know how these studies are being done, so I'm not going to say anything definitive. Now, ban taxpayer funding for sex change surgeries. Why? Why would you ban that? I mean, don't you... Well, maybe they don't. Maybe they want trans people to off themselves so they can live in their little bubble of there being there's no such thing as trans people. I have no idea how you will treat intersex, because that's a thing. But maybe that's the goal. Get trans people so miserable that they off themselves in the hope that you make the issue go away. Okay, and stop taxpayer-funded schools from promoting gender transition. Again, nobody's fucking promoting it. They're just letting you know that it's a thing. That trans people exist. That's not a promotion. These are from the same idiots who don't see a problem with posting the 10 Commandments or that Jesus should be allowed in schools. How is that not fucking promotion? And yet they go off and insist that anything that they don't see as normal is somehow promoting. It's not a promotion. It's just letting you know that this exists. Reverse Biden's radical rewrite of Title IX education regulations and restore protections for women and girls. Again, trans women are women. Yes, they were born male, but they do not see themselves as men. They see themselves as women, and I just don't see what protections were lost. I mean, these trans women are not doing anything that other women and girls wouldn't do. I don't see... Now, the sports thing, again, that's murky. So I'm not getting into that. So what else is there about Title IX that is eroding protections for women and girls? This nonsensical idea that trans women are just pretending to be trans because they're just men in dresses that want to attack women and girls. Again, not happening. Are there men who attack women? Absolutely. They aren't trans, and actually I don't know of any men who pretend to be women to attack women and girls. Because why go through all that trouble? Just waltz right in and attack. I mean, you're supposedly stronger than the women, right? So that shouldn't be a problem. All right. However, the anti-trans messaging may actually backfire on Trump and other Republicans. Here's hoping. A March 2024 poll showed that 53% of voters oppose candidates who campaign against transgender people. While that might sound like a slim majority, such a majority could help determine which candidates win in close races, which would be awesome. An August 2023 Economist YouGov poll found that majorities of voters mostly care about inflation, taxes, jobs, the economy, government spending, and immigration. And there is that. But this isn't for the average person. This is to shore up their base. Because their base, though they care about this stuff, are apeshit over trans people, which I have no understanding of why. I mean, they're just showing how much they hate men. And I'm talking about the men as well. The males as well. They hate males because they are basically saying, I, as a male, if I was in this position, I would attack women and girls, or I would do this, or I would do that. And so they assume that trans women do the same thing because they think like men and not like women. I mean, I just don't understand how you can get it through their heads that they don't think like you because they're not like you. They are closer to women. That's one thing. And of course, there is the fact that lesbians exist. So even if there is a trans woman, there is no guarantee that lesbianism exists. So cis women could go into a woman's bathroom, and by your logic, she could be a predator simply because she likes women. With trans women, a lot of them are straight, so they're interested in men. So they're not even interested in the women and girls that you're so pearl clutching about that they're going to attack. Why would they attack a gender that they're not even interested in? That makes zero sense. So, of course, this is just bullshit. This is just to rile up their base to make them afraid of people. People who do not look and act like them. Just because someone doesn't look and act like you does not make them bad or scary. And I just do not understand. I just don't know how to get through to people that this is not the problem. That you're making a problem where there is none. So anyway, that is the end of this article. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video.